are back to another episode of Whiskey
and Real Estate.
And we have a very, very special guest this week. I'm very excited about this. I think we've talked about bringing him on for quite some time. Lucas, I'll let you do the introduction.
Well, this is who I look a lot alike, and this is who I've been hoping to get on for since we've started, essentially. He's also the one that's kind of introduced me to the bourbon era, and I always get to bounce ideas back and forth. This would be my father, Ken Burrington Jr.
Let's go. I don't
Junior
know.
in the house.
One of these should be like a clap. Nope. Nope. Yep, that's a clap.
I like that one best.
Okay. How you doing?
Excellent.
Welcome to the Whiskey and Real Estate Podcast. I imagine you probably had to hear a thing or two about whiskey and real estate from this guy. Well, probably real estate. He probably learned about whiskey from you, I hope.
Well, I got him started, and he ran with the ball, and
Yep.
he's been having me try more.
Yeah, we've definitely, Blake and I kind of took it to a next level, and since Dad met Blake, he obviously, and we haven't had tall balls on. We were trying to get him and Blake on at the same time, but that wasn't coordinating properly. But I mean, so Dad's got to, he kind of gets to hear what we've done, and then he goes and tries now. So yeah,
nice. And our
full circle.
Yeah, our whiskey of the week. What do we have here? Let's get this guy on camera.
We have the Four Roses. That is part of the Kentucky bourbons that are out there. That is a small batch. The reason it's called, it's got the Four Roses to it, and it's got kind of a sweet taste to it because this is one of the few bourbons out there that's actually mashed with some fruit. So it's got a little fruit mixed into it. It's been sitting in a mixed berry barrel, along with your bourbon oak, your normal oak barrel that the bourbon sits into. This is a Lawrenceburg, Kentucky whiskey. So part of the whiskey train again that we need to get our butts on.
Yeah, we're gonna figure it out.
I honestly think there's no ifs, ands, buts about it that we just put it on Monika's to-do list that
She'll make it happen. She always does.
that we have the whiskey tour for. I would love to do it in the fall because, getting into the mountains and that area during the fall time would be absolutely gorgeous, scenery-wise. And then I think our kids go back to school about then, so it'd be a good the kids are back in school.
Helen she would do cartwheels to get a chance to go on that.
Yep.
She'd been drinking way more bourbon than I have.
Yeah, Helen's taking a liking to the old-fashioned tone.
Hey.
That'd be my mom. Yep, that'd be my mom.
Dude, that old bullet, old-fashioned is just, that's an easy go-to. Like that. Yep. That's like a good starter whiskey and a good drink. It's a good time with the right people.
With the right people. So, and I was thinking today, hey, did you come up with any ideas of what you wanted this episode to kind of deal with, or, we can get into the doing business with family and family matters, and because we're in the middle of a transaction like that, and we're dealing with the opposite side of the family, that we're essentially evicting out of a property right now, where I'm going to have to go move their stuff to the curb tomorrow.
Oh no, fam! Like related?
Like, well,
close
brother enough to call a family,
Yeah. Ooh, I know that stuff. And
yeah.
We've definitely talked about those situations that come up, but you're going through another one now. That's not fun.
No, not at all. And it's unfortunate, but we're working on a deal right now with my aunt, and it's been a good transaction. It took a little bit of shaking up front because she you need to respond faster type situation, and her fast response time is within an hour or two, not because I'll respond within the same day, within a couple hours, when I get a free moment, and Dad had to kind of let her know, hey, you know what? A good busy realtor is a good realtor.
I stress that to her. I told her, I go, if he is worth his salt at all, he's not going to get right back to you because he's doing something else. I go, if you want a crappy realtor, you can get hold of me anytime you want.
It's
He's
true.
always available.
Yeah, available. A bad realtor is always available.
Facts. Well, while we have you here, I think it'll also be cool to talk about the lessons that you may have taught Lucas and things that he applies to his everyday life now. Is that something you should start, or is that something?
Well, I'll get into the brief intro of who my father is and where he's been and what he's done, because it might help you with some of your questions and
Let's do it.
bridging some gaps too.
Okay.
So my dad, he's obviously been this last, I would say, especially 15 years of my life, kind of been like one of my role models, kind of the guy that I kind of mirror what life can be and not to be afraid of change. Because I think my dad was, I'm 44 and my dad's 30. When my dad was 36, he went back to college.
Okay.
He was a cop for 18 years.
Hey.
So he was from a jailer to a deputy sheriff to, whatever not goes into the ranks of the police force. And his father was a sergeant of the police force up in Black Hawk County. So
That's Waterloo, right?
Waterloo. Yep. And so they've seen the whole, from the 60s to the 70s to the 80s into the 90s.
The times have changed.
Yes, because I saw my grandpa this morning when we were showing my aunt a house, and the house they're looking at, my great grandpa lived across the street from originally.
Wow.
And the house that my aunt lives in, I sold her that house 2 years ago. And that is like kitty corner from where my dad grew up and on the same block and everything. So it's like been like full circle and type situation. So dad was a cop for 18 years, 36 years old, roughly. I think he was 36. You went back to college, got a 4-year teaching certificate. So he could be a history teacher and coach. He was coaching at the collegiate level while he was there. So at Westmar University, he was coaching football, and then he was coaching high school football too. So hence where I got my coaching and so on and so forth. So he was kind of, when I'd go to practice with him, I was little at that time, and I'd go to college practice, watch his practices. I'd piss off all those football players as I'm throwing mud at them and doing whatever I need to do.
Oh, man.
They'd be doing film study, drawing stuff up. I'd be sitting out the door watching, and I was learning at a real small age of what it was taking, and I was digging it. I was loving it, and he'd get busy, and I'd go run off into the gym, go shoot baskets or go kick balls around in the gym while he was doing his thing coaching. And then so I was a freshman in high school when he got his first teaching job. It was going into my freshman year. So Lord knows that was changed, and we got up and moved and went to this small school of 200 kids 200 people in our whole town.
So what city were you born in, and then where did you guys move to?
So I was born in Rock Rapids, Iowa, and I think I was up in that area because you guys were on a case, weren't you?
No, we were in Rock Rapids because my first deputy sheriff's job, I worked in Rock Rapids for 1 year in Lyon County.
Yep.
And then after that year, then we moved down to O'Brien County.
Gotcha. So Rock Rapids, which is kind of by the Sioux City area, easiest way.
That's closer to Sioux Falls.
Well, yeah, Sioux Falls area. And we moved from that area over to Algona area to this town that was a town of 200 people. I'm telling you, man. There was one stoplight in the whole county. The whole county, there was one stoplight. Not the town. There was 34 males in my whole high school, 9 through 12.
Oh, man.
I remember my senior year.
Talk about slim pickings.
Yeah. I remember my senior year, there was 34 males out for football out of 35 males in my school.
But on the plus side, not good for a football coach, but on the plus side, my youngest daughter's class had 11 girls and 1 boy.
Yep. Well, Jake graduated with 13 in his class, so yeah.
What?
That's when it became time, if you're going to coach anything, it's time to move on.
Yep. So so we've had the journey. So change. We always talk about change and pivoting and whatnot. And that reflection part, that part of my life is a huge reflection of where I am right now and where I'm not afraid to change, because that change that he made as a person and as an individual is probably one of the hardest decisions as a family that we could have made. But was the best change that we've ever had for our family as well.
Second best.
Well, yeah.
Hold on. What was the first?
Helen.
Well, that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't.
Which is true.
Yeah, I mean, it was a ripple effect. So, I mean, yeah, so it led to the top 2 things in our family that really brought us all together and whatnot. So, I mean, it was 36 years old starting over, man.
Yeah. I mean, we hear from Lucas. Let's hear from you about it. What was the transitions like?
Well, the transitions they're scary, but on the same token, you got to take a chance every now and then, and you just got to say, I'm going to do it and do it, and let the chips fall where they may. And another thing what I've always loved about Lucas is the fact that Lucas has never strayed, and if you know Lucas at all, he's never strayed from doing work one day in his life. I mean, the minute he was old enough to work, he's been working his whole life, and which was tough over there because he had to travel to find a place to work because there was obviously nothing where we lived. And but he's, like I said, his work ethic has always just carried him on to what he wants to do, and I think for him, having that work ethic makes change easier.
Yeah, because in the work world, you have to be pivoting, and you did the change because you wanted to be happy, and because you were you were set in in the cop field, you weren't necessarily exactly happy with it. You wanted change. So I mean, yeah, kudos to you on making the change. It was tough. I never understood it at the moment.
No, you hated it.
I mean, there's still things about it that it just like, damn, but I understand it. I'm 44 going through similar change at 43 and 44, So, I mean, I get it. I understand it. I've understood it for years, and I'm very thankful for Helen for sure. And that's, she's like my real mom. I mean, so she's probably the greatest woman that I've ever met. And
yeah, she's not too bad.
Yeah.
That's right, she does watch this thing.
But I mean, it was crazy. Like when me and Dad moved to this town, you want to talk about real estate. So let's talk about real estate. The house that we had there, and I about shit my pants because with the house we lived in, we got bought for $13,000. And that was a decent house in where we were living. Like you weren't going to buy a house.
How long ago?
So this would have been 96, 97, 96 and 97.
Got you a decent house.
Nice house.
In the small town Iowa?
Nice.
Yeah, small town Iowa. It's crazy. We went to Colorado 2 weeks ago, me and Monika, and we were chasing our basketball girls around because Camille and our Puma girls were playing in Colorado. And we're going through these desolate towns. Like when you hit Nebraska and Colorado, especially when you first get into Colorado from Nebraska, you when you say you got a neighbor, that means that person lives 5 miles away.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you had a neighbor that you could just throw a rock to, like we can here in town.
Yep.
And she's like, where do they get groceries? I'm like, I worked at a grocery store growing up, and I had to drive 20 some odd minutes to get to work, and so
we were 2 hours in, and there still wasn't a store.
It's crazy. So she looked at me crazy when I kept filling up my car with gas every time we stopped to get something. Mm-hmm. You got to have a tank. I'm like, I don't know when the next gas station is going to be. I'm like, so yeah, I'm filling up right now. Every time we stopped, I filled up. But yeah, but real estate. Now that same house in that town would still only go for $30,000.
Nice.
Now you move that house to Cedar Rapids, I'll sell it for $160.
That's crazy.
It is crazy, but you talk about demographics of real estate and where it changes and how it changes, and in my dad's world and my world of real estate, it's changed ever so much because where he lives now is he now lives on a Century Farm. Mm-hmm. So Century Farm, that was
Heritage Farm.
Yep. Well, a Heritage Farm. So that means it's been in the system more than 100 years.
Nice.
So where they live is my grandpa's farm, and that farm was existed before it was actually a county.
Okay. Wow. Predates the county.
Yeah. So they have a whole different set of rules and laws because of what they're grandfathered into there.
Yep.
So,
let me ask, what are some of the perks
of living in the country?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Where do I start?
Well, let's go with the negatives. The negatives are you have to travel to get anything. Mm-hmm. That's it. The positives are pretty much everything else.
Yeah.
You peace and quiet. You get to see a lot of animals and stuff that you wouldn't see in town, and it's just the freedom. I mean, just when you have any amount of property at all, it's a freedom of just going out and walking, and you're all on your property, and ain't nobody else there, ain't nobody gonna mess with it, and it's just peaceful.
So, Monica, what do you think of the farm?
Oh, I'm going to for the summer.
So
Wait, what?
I am.
she's gonna go. She wants to stay the summer there.
Really?
Yeah, she doesn't like to leave when we go there.
Yeah.
So explain, what's your thoughts on the farm?
I'm going to put the kids to work. No, why would you do that? My hair's not done.
Oh my God.
You look great, baby.
I guess
That's the right answer, Lucas.
Thank you. I really enjoy it. It's very quiet, and it's just relaxing.
So we were there for Easter, and Dad and Grandpa's farm are, I mean, right across the road's the timber, and it's all timbered with a river, with a creek that runs through the middle of it. Mm-hmm. So it is beautiful. I mean, it's got a good scenery.
And Lucas very, very rarely have phone service, so that's
it was fun, and that's what I was getting into is
the best part.
we brought all three of Monica's kids with Junior and Mari and Chloe, and they looked at like, well, how do we get on the internet here? and there is internet there. We just weren't going to give them the password and let them know what it is.
Yeah.
And so Monica looks at him like, there is no internet out here in the country.
Nice.
And so phones had to go down. So that's, you want to talk about a perk. So I was texting, and every time I go to Dad's, it seems like I always get real estate business. You know, you want to sell a house, go on vacation.
Yep.
and so I literally was sending basketball stuff out while I was talking to Dad during Easter, and I had to reach my hand outside the deck in the middle of the rain so my hand would get out where it would get a tower so the photos would send. And Monica's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm sending a message. This is how you do it on the farm.
That's awesome. I mean, especially I get from Monica's perspective, and then I'm like, I would go insane. I have to have access to business. It's not my phone. It's business. Like, it doesn't
you
stop.
would have it if you need it. Lucas is one of those where if his phone keeps going and he has someone that will not stop texting, and you know they won't stop texting, he'll just continue to text that person. It's like, yeah, they can wait. They'll be fine. It's not life or death. He'll be all right. But he'll just keep going. It's like, girl, give me that phone.
And we do have good, decent phone service. It's just you learn real quickly you have to have the right kind of internet, you have to have the right phone service, and they work in that area. And if you don't have one of those, then they don't work on that area.
Okay.
So once you know what you got. I did think of, when Monica brought it up, I thought of another negative. You also got a lot more ground you have to take care of.
Oh, yeah. More responsibilities for sure.
Yeah, that work ethic,
Yeah, because I'm making a list now, but what can Monica's kids be doing out here?
Yeah.
We can pick up branches, we can be out in the field, pick up rocks.
That was the
And
first
if
thing
you ever
Lucas said.
work,
Everybody get rocks.
you spend 8 hours picking rocks out of a field, whatever you got paid, you earned it.
You definitely earned it. But it's cool, Tone, in the real estate world, that when I get to talk to Dad and I get to talk to, the people around there, or even my brothers and my sisters, and they got questions because they're all small town.
Yeah.
I've always, kind of bounced from the cities and whatever, not and back to the small town. And the small towns are starting to deal with the same problems we're dealing with here. Mm-hmm. Like, we're used to construction. We're used to, eminent domain, where the government's coming in and expanding the highway, and they're taking over land like they're doing out here. They took off a quarter of acre just of this parcel here, just so they can expand, Mount Vernon Road. Yep. That stuff wasn't happening in the small town areas up until this last 10 to 15 years. And now it's starting to hit where, now 2-lane interstates are going to 4-lane on each side. Yeah. And farmers are losing part of their grounds. And that's all eminent domain. There ain't shit they can do about it. I mean, they take the check that they give them and say, okay, I got to take it and go. They can fight it.
Okay, so they do get a check.
So usually it's usually it's well.
That was met with laughter.
It's usually 4 to 5 times better than the market value of that property. And he's going to roll his eyes, but
Dad's got to look.
Whose
side are you on, Lucas?
But here's the part of real estate we haven't talked about, and that Dad can kind of fill us in. So the government loves to have their hand in real estate. Mm-hmm. Like before Trump, before anything, the biggest realtor out there in the world was still the government,
right?
Because they still were always finding ways to take land from the farmers, or to pay the farmers to give them land. So whether like Obama era windmills, windmills was a big thing. They're still going on. Clean energy that Biden was pushing for 4 years is clean energy.
Where does that land come from?
So it comes from the farmers, and so they rent it. And Dad can get into more of this because he'll have a better thing because they just dealt with it on the farm. Mm-hmm. Is they were they were approached by the government, says, if we could put a windmill up or a company, if we could put a windmill up, we'll lease this much of your land for this period of time. But that also comes with rules and restrictions of what he can do around that area.
Rules around my house, my property.
Yep. But again,
guess what? There's no windmills.
Yes. So Dad got to experience that end of it this last 2 to 3 years probably. Yep. But he also has a thing what they call CRP land. So CRP land is what in real estate is in agriculture and farm. They ask these farmers to put so much, or the farmer can decide itself. So let's just say you got that's money. I put that on silent. I swear.
Manika's giving him a look.
Oh,
Thank you, Manika.
So for habitat for animals and creatures, and let's just say you have a low producing farmland. Mm-hmm. Your CRP falls below, let's just say 60 or 65, and it's sitting in the 50s or whatever. That's a good spot for CRP land. Yeah, because it's not a high producing yielding land. And so what the government will do then, you're going to roll your eyes like you don't know what I'm talking about on this stuff. So the government will come in and say, you know what, if you have so many acres of CRP land, I'm going to pay you this much a year. Yeah. They're going to rent. That's their land, though. You can't run any water through it. You can't touch it. You can't move it. You can't burn it. You can't do anything. So it's like making the deal with the devil.
Well...
But he can talk about the opposite side of this. So this is the part of real estate that gets really
we haven't went here before, so this is extremely interesting to me, and I'm glad we have somebody that's experiencing it. So when they come and make these offers, so Lucas said 4 to 5 times more. Do you feel that it's a fair offer that they make you? What's the price for peace?
Well, it depends. We haven't had the opportunity yet where we live to be offered any dollar figure for eminent domain. We have been offered about every other year. We have a company or two stop out there and want to put up windmills, but that takes the agreement of several farms in the area before anybody will do that, and there's nobody out in our area that's willing to do it.
What are some of the pros and cons?
Well, you can make good money from the windmills, having them out there. You actually will probably make 3-4 times what you would have on that ground that they have, because they have to tear up a path all the way out there and gravel it and build a place for the windmill and all that kind of stuff. What you would get off that ground, you probably will get 3 or 4 times what you would have got off that ground.
Well, and that's the saying in real estate is it's 3 to 4 times of what the income producing of that area is. So when I was out in Sac City, they rerouted Highway 20. Mm-hmm. And so they were expanding all the natural highways, and they were buying off, an acre here and an acre there of a farmland just so they could expand the highways. And the price that they were throwing out there was almost hard to say no to.
Yeah, but then I also I know that because of the bike paths and stuff they've been building in between towns, those guys have been lucky to get more than just maybe 1.5 times what it's worth for like the bike paths and stuff.
What are the reasons to say no, or the reasons the farmers around you are saying no?
Well, they make noise.
Kill the birds.
Kill birds.
A lot of birds.
And a lot of what we look at is what happens to them at the end of their time. I mean, they're only good for like 15 years. Mm-hmm. And okay, what happens to all those fiberglass? Fiberglass does not. It's not biodegradable. I mean, what happens to all that? You still have all that concrete bases and stuff they put out there, and it just has not become worth the hassle for us right now. There's other parts of the state. I mean, even just north of us, you go north of us 10 miles, and they have tons of windmills.
So Tone, when you travel at night, you see a bunch of red lights flashing, and you see a whole bunch of them. Those are all the damn windmills.
Those are windmills.
So just think, every time you see one of those lights flash, that is someone that gave up a piece of their land and a piece of their farm. And
never thought about it though. It always creeped me out because the red lights are all in sync and there's so many.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the evil windmills.
Well, no one understands how huge they are until you're standing next to them either. Yeah. Because each wing is 18 plus feet.
Okay. Holy.
So each, just put it in perspective, each blade that's on one of those is bigger than this building. Mm-hmm. When you go from top to bottom.
It's ridiculous.
So that's not counting the middle, the column, the center column that's going up. That's obviously larger than the wings. I mean, it's a huge process when they put it into place, and you're not guaranteed that motor's going to last. He says 10 to 15 years or 15 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, you hear some that are going 6 and 7
and burning up
and burning up. And right now, getting parts for that, especially during COVID, you couldn't get any parts for them, so they just sat there. They were dead. And there's only very few small areas that were making them. So I mean, it's crazy. But when we get into we're in whiskey and real estate here, so. When we talk about real estate, this is a whole different item of real estate that a lot of people don't get into that we get a branch off to.
Now the CRP ground, I know that one really well.
Yeah, talk about the CRP ground. That's a pretty decent deal.
The CRP ground is ground that you're really not leasing it to the government. They have conditions for you to have it, and if you have a poorly
producing farm.
Producing area.
Yep.
Like we have a spot that has several rocky knolls in it, and it just does not produce that well. It's because of where we're at in accordance with the creek. It's all limestone. Yep. So what we can do is we can make an arrangement with the government that because I want to get to the second part of this too, because that's really important. Yep. That we can make an arrangement with the government not to do anything with that land. All we have to do is maintain a 15-foot path around the outside and a 15-foot path down the middle. That's to keep it from fire breaks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And but then they will pay us X amount of dollars, depending on when you had signed up for your contract, and they'll pay you X amount of dollars for every acre that you put in CRP ground. And when the market's high, it even poorly paying fields will pay better. But when the market's low, then you are much better off doing CRP.
Yep.
I mean, presently right now, the land we put in CRP makes me seem like a rocket scientist. like I had a crystal ball knowing that the futures were going to go down.
Right. Because you just expanded that this last, couple years.
Yeah, we went from 5 acres to 45 acres.
Yep.
And they're giving us $300 an acre not to do anything with it.
Nice.
And that's good money right there.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's no wear and tear on the equipment. There's no fuel cost.
And you were pretty much losing money planting that and ripping it, and just that area you were losing money. Probably.
Yes, but when corn was over, corn was $5.50 a bushel, and beans were $11 a bushel. That was producing more than $300 an acre. Right?
Of course.
Right now, when it's $4.62 an acre, and under 10 for beans.
Yep.
Like I said, it seems like was the smart thing to do. So it's going to balance out. I'm sure that prices eventually, tariffs provided, because that's what kind of got us right now. Because China's our number one customer for our corn and beans, and so that kind of driving the prices right now. Another reason that they do the CRP ground, though, is to keep that amount of corn or beans from being put into the market. Because years and years ago, back in the 70s, you'll see a lot of these small 8,000 bushel bins sitting on all these farms.
Yeah.
The government paid you to keep that, not sell it. Just you had to keep it. They literally, you put it in there and you just kept it there until you wasn't any good anymore, until they told you could sell it. Just to keep that amount of corn and beans from not going into the market.
Yeah, they want to overflow the market because that lowers the prices.
Lowers prices, exactly.
Yep.
So
kind of like when you flood the market with too many foreclosures,
Yep.
it brings the value down of all the properties. It's the same thing with if you dump all the corn into the market at one time, it's going to lower the market.
Yeah.
Supply and demand.
What does CRP stand for?
Conservation reserve. I'd have to look at $300 an acre. That's what it stands for. It's conservation. It's a conservation land, so it's conservation something protection.
Yeah.
Reservoir protection. I think it's conservation reservoir protection, if I remember right.
Which translates to like not overflowing the market, not giving them too much.
Well, it's also keeping land for the animals. I mean, habitat. It's keeping habitat. So
well, yes and no. Yeah, it does do that. It does serve that purpose, but there's also wetlands programs that you can get involved in too, that are strictly that's because you can hunt CRP ground.
Correct.
You can't hunt wetlands ground.
Well, and that is a protective class in the real estate field as well, and so. Let's also talk about the advantages of CRP in wet grounds. Is like in Dad's situation, there's a creek that's run by, so CRP also is fantastic for soil erosion. So it holds the soil together, it holds it tighter, so it's not flowing away faster. So that's another reason why it's in there, because like where my dad's farm is, it's a very sandy area, and so therefore there's a lot of erosion because there's not thick dirt to keep in place and go. So as the rain and water and whatever wind comes by, the rocks he's talking about, those rocks are from glacier times that are in the dirt. Every year the frost comes up and pushes those rocks up. So every year those rocks come to the surface.
You mentioned like I could have them picking rocks for 8 hours, and I'm like,
yeah.
How many rocks? Like after you've done that for a week, why are there still rocks?
Oh my God! I mean, I picked up rocks since I was 7 years old. I used to get hired out to all the farms to go pick up rocks because some of these rocks are bigger than me. And when you're a big dude and you got stamina, and I can go out there and pick up rocks for 8 hours that are about the size of me, and they don't have to bring their tractors except filling their buckets full.
Yeah.
Because now they're not digging, they're not doing anything, and I'm just popping rocks and throwing them in the bucket. So, I mean, every time that the frost goes into so November frost starts hitting your soil, and it comes out in the March. And as soon as that elevation comes up from the frost, it's bringing rocks with it. Damn. That's where you find your dinosaurs' bones on the surfaces and shit. That's that's how that happens. Erosion. It's erosion, and it's the frost pushing it up.
We have rocks out in our field that we have no idea how big they are underneath. Above it, they're half the size of this room.
What?
Yeah, it's true. Jesus. Yeah, there's a spot that I hunt that I sit on top of the rock when I hunt. Yeah, that's because you ain't moving it.
Yeah.
So you have no idea underneath there how big it really is.
And like what, each time it rains, or do you see like each year it is just constantly?
It's a little taller.
Over time.
It's crazy, man.
It may have started at a pebble.
So all you dinosaur lovers out there, you need to go hook up with a farmer that's like a century farmer that is seen through the years. He can tell you how that soil is eroded and what he's found and the shit that comes up. I mean, it's crazy. So that's boring talk right there of real estate right there. We got into it. It's new.
Interesting to me because it's somewhere we've never went. And it's important information, honestly. Like
it's huge information. So those of you guys looking at ag land and everything up there. So it's funny when what my dad and Helen did was they built a house on top of my grandpa's farm. So they basically had to get an easement that comes in so they could parcel off this part of the farm for them to build a house on.
Yeah.
So in farming and ag, you can parcel off so many acres to be commercial, so many acres to be residential.
Yeah.
So I'm dealing with the land that we own right now. Yeah. And the county allows you to have one free parcel. Mm-hmm. You get a one free parcel where they're not going to charge you. That means they'll send a survey out and they'll cut your acres in half. Me, I'm building 3 houses on 15 acres. So we had to parcel it 3 times. Yeah. I had to pay almost $20,000 just to get that surveyed and everything out, and where they'd come out and parcel it and give you a new plat map and everything, so on and so forth. So on the real estate side with my dad's, it was a family farm, so they had to get an easement. They had to parcel off so he could build a house on there. Now, they didn't build a house on there. They put a basement in. So, but he still, even though it's a century farm, they had to follow today's regulations with septic and leach fields and so on and so forth, which is a huge difference. Now, if they would have took Grandpa's house, who's still there, Grandpa's house is still sitting there, and they would have done a transaction on Grandpa's house, they would have had to update the septic. They would have had to do all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Any real estate transaction that you deal with right now, if your septic tank hasn't been put in since 2011, you need a brand new septic system, and you need probably a new leach field and a new well.
What does that run you?
$30 or $30,000.
$30.
Yeah.
30,000.
Yeah, about 30,000.
Yeah. Real quick. 30.
Yep. That'll get your well and your septic. If you're just doing septic, it's about 18 to 19,000. So, and that's the stuff when Dad started building, and I get to talk to him through the process. I'm like, well, you're going to need this, you're going to need this, and then they had some deaths. We had a lot of deaths in the family. This last 3 years, that all owned all the acreages around it. You want to talk about nightmares? These farmers that have some deaths that are coming, because some of these farmers. So in the 80s, we lost a whole century of farmers. Or a whole 10 years worth of farmers, because we had an 80s recession that killed, basically everyone got out of farming except for the century farms. Yeah. Then we went through in the early 2000s the corporate takeover. So the big corporate companies, I mean, it could be people that have never farmed. They were teaming up, buying all the land from all these older farmers. So it's like they were watching it. So we lost the 20-year-olds and the 30-year-old farmers in the late 80s, early 90s. Those guys are gone. So they were out of it. There was few and far in between there. So then they looked at the centuries. Okay, so now we got 95s to 2005 farmers that are coming that are the 30s and so on and so forth. Yeah. These corporate people are like, okay, but there's a hell of a lot more baby boomers out there that are now reaching that 55 to 65 years old. So corporate teamed up in these areas all around the United States, China, Russia, everyone coming in. And they're like, okay, we're going to buy this, and we're going to throw stupid dollar amounts at these farmers to say, get the hell out of farming. Corporate farming's coming in.
Yep.
My God. Lucas.
Well, no, the ones who survived are the ones who won. Money wasn't their main objective. They were,
it's Yellowstone. It was pride.
Oh, yeah. Helen's dad, he bled dirt. I mean.
Yep.
He
didn't get him out of
there.
No. And the ones that were smart back during those time frames are farmers like my father-in-law, who don't owe anything. They own all their. When they want to buy a piece of machinery, they went and paid cash for it. They owned all their land. I mean, those are the guys that the recessions and stuff did not affect as much. And again, like I said, they care less what corporate wants to do with their land. They don't care how much money you give them for them. They're not going anywhere. Because this farm is going to be 100, 56 was 100, 150 and 206, so 166 years old.
Our farm? Yeah.
166. It was bought from the Black Hawk Territory. Mitchell County didn't become a county until the 1858. And so, yeah, it's older than the county.
Yeah, you want to get into some cool history, so go start talking to some of the older farmers out there.
The first person to ever die in Mitchell County, the probate number 00001, was Helen's great-great-grandfather. He drowned in the creek. Yeah. He's the first guy to pass away in that county.
And that's what I'm thinking, like, was the original owner of the farmer, was he just like a genius? Was he just like, this is a good investment? Do you think they knew that this is something that they'd be able to pass on generation to generation? Or
well, when you were a settler, you wanted to gather as much as you could, and you wanted to stake. And so they live in a little town of Maroa, right outside of Osage, and that little town of Maroa was all uncles, brothers, cousins, sisters. And it's because they were staking land. Boom. Taking ownership right of this, because back then you just had to put your stake in the ground. And
yeah, you didn't pay anything, did you? It's just that stake.
Yeah. And so if you were grandfathered in when they started charging property tax and so on and so forth. So, I mean, yes, but that's what's going on today. Except now they're not putting stakes in the ground, they're putting dollars in the ground. So you got these ex-NFL people coming into to his area right now.
And their land actually borders up against mine.
Yeah, and so these ex-NFL players are pooling money into a pool, and they're like, we're going to buy out this plot, this plot, this plot, this plot, this plot. We're going to buy this farmer out, this farmer out. He's been doing it for 50 years. He's probably ready to sell. Let's go make this dollar amount offer on him. Or we really like this land over here. We're going to throw a number that he can't say no to. So, John, your cousin over there, you're like, hey, John, don't ever sell your 240 acres. Don't ever do that. Hey, man, I'm going to meet you at coffee every day for the next 30 years. Year 31, you show up, and John's like, sorry, man, I vegged.
Not you, John.
Not you, John.
This is the 4th generation farm. Like, how could you?
But that's what's going on in today. So in recent news, let's talk about the last 12 months. You know, they had to revoke land that was being bought under LLC names around like our military bases. Because China was coming in and buying the farmland around the military bases so they could they could surveillance the military bases. So North Dakota had to come in and say, you are no longer, if you're not a U.S. citizen, if you don't have this, and this, we're not selling this land to you. Or if you did buy it, we're taking it right back, and we're not even buying it from you. We're taking it back.
What if they registered a LLC through the U.S. government? Like, I mean, is that just illegal?
So what they were doing is giving, and we found this out on a transaction in Center Point. I told you about previous episode. So there was land that was being sold, and they made it very clear that, you know, you had to be this, and this to buy this land.
So you register an LLC in America or in that state.
So
and you buy
a couple Russians, they paid some serious cash for these two farmers in the Center Point area to buy up these land. And I was a banker when they first started talking about it. I'm like, where are you going to come up with this money?
Yeah.
And sure shit, here we are 10 years later, 15 years after I'm being a banker. I see the transaction goes through, and I'm like, oh, my God. And then I trace the LLC. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, there's something going on here. And sure shit, you know, I'm like, hey, man, you know, I'd like to buy part of that land you guys bought. I know you're not doing anything with it. What's going on? And they're like, man, you're going to have to talk to this guy, and this guy. I'm like, oh, man. But, yeah, that's the crazy stuff that's going on right now. And so, like, when we talk about China putting that big old balloon that traveled from Alaska all the way over to North Carolina and so on and so forth. Yeah. When they're surveilling stuff, they're looking for land to buy. I mean, they're looking over our top facilities. Where do we hold our missiles? Where do we hold our training bases? Where do we hold this? We're going to buy that land around it. And North Dakota caught on to it, and they said, we're taking that land back. We're not selling it. No more sales, not happening.
You never thought you'd get into this much stuff, did you?
Well, that's what I'm trying to get in here real quick. Lucas, you might have seen me either shake my head or roll my eyes, because this is like season 6, close to 7.
Yeah.
And it's just so much new. Like, you're just, I'm not trying to glaze you or anything, or as the kids say, glaze you, but like, you just know so much information that I didn't think we were going to even ever tap into. And I'm like, how does this guy still know more stuff that I'm still learning, and there's still just more in the bank? And it's important and great information to have, but it's also like, I don't need to fact check this because nobody's.
Oh, you can. I could show you sales of. My dad could show you sales of the bordering land to him of who bought it, and it is 4 NFL guys that chipped in money to go buy land all around Iowa.
Oh man!
And they would gladly buy mine in a heartbeat.
Yep, exactly. And it's crazy when you think like that, because these guys that were forming these LLCs and whatnot. And I guarantee, you know, we got beat last year in the podcast competition by former NFL kicker Nate Kading. I haven't forgot.
We coming for you,
but he's one of those groups that are buying up a bunch of real estate.
Yep.
You know,
he's involved in Big Grove. I saw him at
Good
one of
dude.
my Rotary Club meetings,
yeah.
And it was probably about 2 years ago. And he's like, "This is what we're gonna do, and this is where we're gonna, and then we're gonna expand to this." And I'm watching all that, like, in Cedar Rapids, that's not gonna happen. And then now I see it live and thriving.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, he had a plan. And he talked about that too, is how like these guys will do the NFL, you live the life and you got all that money during that time and you're trying to live that life when you're not in the sport anymore.
Yeah.
And you got to find that alternative, and I believe that alternative is real estate.
Well, and you got to understand that 3 of those guys are from a small town.
Parkersburg.
They're all from Parkersburg. They're all from a farming community to begin with. So if there's anything they know something about, it's farming.
We just heard how much Lucas knew that I had no idea you knew this much about farming. But when you grow up in it, because I'm sure you do some business with this, but like a lot of this knowledge you just spit was from living it, right?
Yeah, well, living in, and I was an ag baker too. So I mean, I was hands on the ground, Sac City, Iowa, checking on farms, figuring out appraisal values of market values of corn, and figuring out when I went and they wanted to come to me and buy and build a hog building, I need to know what it cost per slab when they were putting that building up, if it was going to make money. So, okay, so many hogs can fit on per slab. Okay, what's the market of those hogs that they're going to sell per slab? Is this going to cash flow this building? So when I got to worry about cash flows today on rents, I mean, that's easy compared to figuring out if there's going to be some type of flu hitting or hitting the turkey buildings when they're building the turkeys, because over by Sac City there, we had, what's that big, Sara Lee, the big turkey producers over there.
Oh yeah.
So we had turkey buildings going up all over, and we had to know what the market was of the turkey sales, and we had to understand what the bird flu was, and we had to understand how all this had impact. I mean, I remember one guy, we were sitting at the bar one night, and one of my best friends.
Fancy that.
Yep. Yeah. One of my best friends just got done spreading chicken litter throughout the whole Midwest, for basically 3 months. And he would go 18 hours a day. He'd clean out these chicken buildings. They'd put it into his spreader. He'd shoot it all into the fields, which puts nitrogen back into the field, which helps your yields of the corn and beans and so on and so forth. And his son, I coached in football. And I loved his son. He one of those hard-working, grinding kids. He would do anything you asked him to do. If you needed your tractor fixed, it's fixed. You need your car fixed. Shit, why, the brakes went out in the car. I need them replaced. He's there doing it. Come up and slap this kid in the back of the head as he's sitting next to us as Dad and I are having a drink. And he's like, "You're a big old pussy." And I'm like, "Okay, here it's going to get ugly here real quick." And I'm like, "How are you going to call this kid?" I go, "I've coached this kid for 4 years." How, Papa Bear and Coach comes out because his dad doesn't have the balls and hasn't had enough drink to say anything yet.
Dad, sit down. I got this.
And he's a big dude. He's a big dude. And so he's still talking shit to this kid, and he's like, "You were puking, so on and so forth." Well, bird flu was going around. It was 103 to 114 degrees in these turkey buildings, all dead carcasses. I mean, you're talking 1,500 birds dead in an area that's about the size of a football field.
That can't smell good, number one.
At 150 degrees. And this kid is strong as nails, and we're taking skid loaders in and we're throwing them into the front of the buckets, and we're trying to get these birds out as quick as possible without breathing anything in. And because as soon as you caught anything outside your mask, you were vomiting. And that's what this kid was. He was vomiting. And so he kept calling this kid a pussy because he was vomiting.
It's because I worked so hard.
Oh, it got ugly that night. I mean, it got ugly that night in that bar. I mean, I had to have a conversation with this guy, and this conversation was not with our mouth. It was turned out to be with our hands afterwards. And,
of course.
And I just looked at him. I'm like, "Man, you have no idea what hard work is like," because he was the guy in the air-conditioned cab of that skid loader. He was not the guy that was shoveling those turkeys. He was not the guy that was picking up their shit. Was not carrying these carcasses.
You're not and
guess what happened when the buckets were full? They still expected you to be scooping shit and taking the turkeys out by hand. And we were waiting on him to come back with the bucket. So there was times where we had 15 birds in our arms, and we're sitting there holding 15 birds that are dead. And you're sniffing that. Yeah, you're vomiting right then and there. I'm like, "Come on, man." It got real ugly that night.
This makes me I've got to bring up the eggs that everyone likes to argue about. The prices of eggs. Is it true there was just a massive slaughtering of chickens that was probably a bad decision that has led to the increase in price on eggs?
It was the exact same thing that I just got done talking about, bird flu.
That's what I thought.
So it was bird influenza, and it's probably one of the most contagious things upon birds. And it's airbound.
Was it a smart move to slaughter that many chickens?
I don't know if they had a choice.
I don't think they had a choice.
Yeah, I don't think they had a choice. You couldn't serve that. You couldn't serve the meat. You couldn't process that meat. They were all dying anyways. I mean, you didn't have a choice.
Now, you know what I pay for eggs?
Not a thing, right?
$1.50.
Really?
Yeah, they're all home produced eggs.
Yeah, our neighbors all have eggs, and they have, that's plenty.
No, you just
there's no
keep
ice in there.
No, there's not.
But no, ours is like I said, our neighbors sell them for $1.50.
Nice.
But because they have 40-some chickens and they can't use all those eggs.
Right.
Yep. You can't sell them. I mean, like in the store or nothing.
So there's a little bit of the background on. I mean, everyone knows the city life of Lucas and what I do. Now you guys know the farm life. You know, it's a whole different world.
How many lives have you lived in what did you say, 44 years?
Dad, how many lives have I lived?
That's a question for Dad.
That's a question for Dad.
I'm surprised you survived as many as you have.
Oh my
It's true. Yeah, I mean,
incredible.
I'm definitely resilient.
Yeah, and it sounds like you get it from him.
Yeah,
we'll get to some interesting stories from cop life, right?
Well, no, we don't need to really do that too much.
Oh man!
I want to know. So here's the story that I always hear about, and this kind of relates to Tone's world.
Hey, so that's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah, so Tone's world is, obviously he just got back from WrestleMania.
Yes.
And it's, he's kind of bucket listing as he's going right now. Yeah. And this is bucket list for Tone. I mean, he had our upcoming wrestler come and using his song. Now WWE is getting to recognize his song. And I mean, it's now on the main event, Yeah,
you're
crazy. On the main event, bro.
It's crazy.
And it's absolutely crazy. And it's funny because this is where it parallels from my dad's and my grandpa's life is. My grandpa always told me the story, and my dad never told me the story. I think he was embarrassed. And so my grandpa, being, sergeant of the police force, he also was, he's the guy that set up the perimeters where anyone came in that was of importance.
Yeah.
So you had,
Well, that was his part-time job, is running security at McElroy.
Yeah.
What was it called?
McElroy Auditorium. It's still there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So my grandpa lost his hearing, and that's the reason he actually got out of the police department, because he lost his hearing. And I always ask Grandpa, how'd you lose your hearing? He's like, well, I worked all the concerts. So any big concert guy that came in, any big wrestling event that came in, Grandpa picked him up, ran security, brought him to the place.
Crazy.
And so all the main wrestlers, everything you want to know, we need to get Grandpa, and you're gonna have to talk to Grandpa.
Oh yeah, Grandpa's next.
So
he can tell you what a real true contact high is.
Yes,
because he worked every single concert, and we went to Pizza Hut immediately following every single concert.
Mama Nick's probably back then, huh?
Well, some of that too.
Yeah, Mama Nick's.
Oh,
yep. So my dad, he's forced into being a jailer. He forced in. So my dad, Dad was quite the athlete himself. He was a football player, wrestler, so on and so forth. And you make mistakes. That Grandpa says you got to go be a jailer.
Yeah. And
one of my dad's first nights. I don't know if it was your first night. You can fill the blanks in on this.
No, it was. Yeah, no. After I worked there a while. Yeah.
Yeah. So and Grandpa tells the story. He's like, yeah, I wanted to scare the shit out of your dad as a jailer. And Andre the Giant was in town at a wrestling event. And Andre the Giant, 7 foot plus guy, 500 pounds, holds the Guinness Book of World Records
to this day.
Yep, of beers drank in a sitting.
Yep.
He's like, he got Andre the Giant to come down to the police station, and Dad's the booking jailer.
Man.
He told Andre the Giant, as soon as you get in this elevator, you start raising hell. Banging on every door of the elevator, you start raising Cain, whatever you got to do. And they got up to the jailer, whatever floor that was you guys were on, 3rd floor. Yeah, that's what Grandpa said. He just said, Andre, go loose.
It's funny because before the podcast started, your dad was saying how we measure how crazy the night's going to be by the elevator noise. Yeah. So you got Andre the Giant making as much noise as he can. Yeah. My God.
Well, in perspective, I'm a bigger dude, and I was probably a bigger baby too. So, I mean, my sister and I could fit in one hand of Andre the Giant's. I mean, and so he released that elevator, and Andre the Giant went crazy and said, "Go ahead, book him, Ken."
Yeah, he said, "Here he is." He goes, "Your problem now." Elevator door shuts, and they went back downstairs. And I'm going,
Woo!
And my dad won't speak high, but my dad was a badass back in the day. I'm like, he was that guy you didn't want to piss off. He was looking for a fight everywhere he went. I think he might have met his match that day.
Just a little bit.
we weren't going to find out. I shut that cage door so fast, I go, he's going to stay out there.
Oh, man.
What a nice guy, though. Gosh, he was friendly. He went out with us out. Because, we would go, they had 24-hour country kitchens and that kind of stuff back then. We went out there to eat out for our lunch breaks and stuff. And what a nice guy. Gosh, he was a sweetheart.
Have you met any other wrestlers?
Boy, sure glad that's not me.
I might get a bottle thrown at me from Monica.
She started pouring again.
Yeah.
Well, I was telling you a couple of the stories. You want me to?
Yeah, please do.
All right.
Now it's recorded.
Yeah.
Well, there was a period of time that Coors beer was illegal. You couldn't get it in Iowa. You only get.
Is it like that strong or?
I don't know.
No, it's like water, man.
Why was it not available in Iowa?
This is the banquet. No, there was a while that you could not sell Coors beer in Iowa. So Bulldog Bob Brown, every time he knew he was wrestling in Waterloo, he always brought my dad a case of beer, of Coors from Colorado, because that's where he lived at.
Nice.
And he'd come over, him and two or three other ones. Junkyard Dog used to come over to our house. And
Which was my dad's favorite wrestler as I was growing up was Junkyard Dog.
It was.
JD, the Junkyard Dog, man.
At the house?
Oh, yeah. My mom would make breakfast after they got done wrestling. And,
What?
yeah, they'd come over and they'd hang out. And being a younger kid, I would just sit there, my jaw hanging on the floor.
Yeah.
And just listening to the stories. And surprisingly, the stories were almost child acceptable.
Yeah.
Almost.
Most of the time they were, but no, I mean, it was not unusual to find 3 or 4 of the wrestlers who wrestled that night at our house in the morning having breakfast.
My God,
At midnight or so.
I don't know if you know Chuck yet, but he called me while I was on that trip, and he's like, "You better never, don't stumble, don't hesitate. You take any opportunity you see, and you get ready." I'm like, "Chuck, you don't need to tell me this. I'm gonna do this no matter what. This is what I do." And I got invited to a dinner with the wrestler that used my song. And he's like, "Hey, before you go in here, I already know you're cool, but like when you see who's at our table, just be cool." I'm like, "Of course, dude. Like this is my world. Like, I do this." I get pulled into this dinner table, and it's a really nice steakhouse. So I'm like, okay, this is probably somebody important. And we sit at the table, and it's fucking Bret Hart sitting at the table, and I almost couldn't breathe, let
It's
alone
Bret Hart,
I didn't have
man.
a choice but to be cool. All I could do, we made eye contact, and I couldn't say hi. I couldn't say I couldn't say a word. All I could do was give him a head nod.
He still look cool? Does he still look cool?
Yeah, he does. He does. I don't think I look cool at all, because I couldn't even look at him any more than that, but I couldn't speak. I didn't have a choice but to play this off, dude.
Yeah. I'd have probably wet myself.
He just won another Hall of Fame ring 2 nights ago. Yeah. So like I don't know what to say, I didn't know how to react. So yeah.
So Bret Hart. So Bret Hart is the WWE is like on kiss your ass mode. Bret Hart.
Yeah, they have to be. They
tried to cancel him, man. They tried to, after the British Bulldog situation and Owen Hart situation.
The Shawn Michaels, Montreal
exactly.
Screwjob.
Yep, that
his
was
brother,
huge,
dude. His brother.
Yeah,
they
Owen,
have to kiss his ass eternally. So. Yeah, but to see him there, and it like I don't know what the feeling was, but it was like fear, respect, and like, oh my God, all in one.
Right.
So yeah, I think I played it cool, but I definitely did not feel cool at the time. So to hear that you just have Junkyard Dog casually, oh yeah, we gave him breakfast and he's at the house, like, wow.
Well, they had to hang around. They had to do something until it was time to catch a plane,
Yeah.
They'd fly back out, and so They just hang out there until it's time to catch a plane.
Yeah, wrestling was definitely embedded in our family. I mean, it was definitely embedded in our family. My first knockout, like blackout, was from my dad because I did a wrestling move on my dad.
Wait, what?
Tell
me
God.
about this.
Oh man, I was a huge Sting fan, you know.
I love Sting,
So
yeah.
I was a huge Sting fan, and of course, who was Sting's nemesis was Ric Flair.
Yep.
Sting's nemesis was Ric Flair, and what Ric Flair always do? Rake the eyes.
Yep.
He was always
your dad did that?
So
Wait,
my
what?
dad and I would always wrestle, and I'm watching,
Dirtiest
you know,
player in the game.
yeah, and I'm watching Sting wrestled Ric Flair that night. Ricky Steamboat Rock wrestled Lex Luger that night. That's when Mysterio's first started coming on. That was WCW time.
Yes, I remember. Good
So,
times.
so Eric Bischoff,
Yep, that's the homie.
So that was the era, and I remember wrestling with Dad that night, and Dad was. It's me at this age. Dad looked.
Yep,
I mean, he was built like
he looks
me
like
at this
you now.
age. Yeah,
I see where you'll be.
Yeah, and so I'm wrestling with Dad. I'm getting on him, and Dad's taking it pretty cool. As I think I'm getting the upper hand on Dad. I'm doing this, and I started raking the eyes.
No, so it's your fault.
It was my
whatever
fault.
happened next is your fault.
And my dad was not nice, so it was one of those things.
He says.
And that's why I am as tough as I am today, is because of the hard love I got from Dad. Is I raked the eyes, and then I got to raking the eyes, but I would go over the nose.
Ooh.
And I ripped skin off his
That
nose.
hurts, especially when you're sweaty. Like it's
And
man.
I remember that plain as day. I went boom, and I ripped skin off his nose. He is bare. Like I could see, or I ripped.
It was
He
at this
took me-
moment Lucas realized
He took
fucked up.
me, slammed me as hard as, and all I remember is I was out cold.
All I remember is waking up.
Exactly. It was. Oh my God! It was like the
man.
time I overflowed the toilet upstairs, and Adrian actually overflowed the toilet upstairs and
He said, I
blamed
just
me.
want to set the record.
Adrian overflowed the toilet upstairs. Dad's sleeping because he worked the night shift, or I don't even know what shift. He slept most of the day when he was a cop.
Yeah.
I usually got off at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, and so Adrian's upstairs, and her that was her bathroom.
Yeah.
I wasn't even allowed to fucking use it. And everything that went wrong in that bathroom was my fault.
I think we got to get Adrian on the podcast.
That's my sister.
To
Oh,
tell-
no, you don't. No.
to tell us the
Monica loves
truth.
Adrian. She's
There's 3 sides to every story, Lucas. We need to hear
there's-
Adrian's side.
so.
Ken's like, no.
So you don't want to talk about road trips. So
Yeah.
well, let's talk about this story anyways. Adrian overflows the toilet upstairs, and she's got the bath running at the same time, so nothing's draining. And we lived in an old farmhouse that was moved into town, and so nothing drained properly. When you took a shower, you were literally standing in like 2 feet of water that was up to your ankles. I mean, it was the nastiest shit you could see. When you went to turn on the valves of the hot and the cold, the whole wall moved. It did. And before you got there, like if someone didn't shower for a day in that house, you literally had to go in with a broom and get all the spiders out and everything. My dad's petrified of spiders. And so I was the guy that always had to go in and get all the
was
bugs
you?
out. I had to get all the bugs out because mom would be like, you got to go down and take care of this and this before your dad gets home, because dad won't go down there if there's a spider. You want to see a big man cry, put a spider in a room. I've seen that guy cower in a corner and be like, there's a spider in this room.
Living on the farm, I have gotten better.
Better.
I only send Helen about every other time to kill the spider first.
There we go.
But anyways, so Adrian overflows the toilet and she overflows the bathtub. They have a drop ceiling above their bed, which is right below the bathroom. Oh my God. It leaks down. The drop ceiling falls on Dad as he's sleeping in the bed, in a water bed.
No, falls on him.
It falls down. Adrian says it's me. I get punted like a football across the room. So I'm like, all right, this is not good. This is probably the worst ass kicking I'm going to take.
Yeah.
But that was my sister. My sister was one of those that was Dad's favorite.
Yeah.
She was an asshole. She comes across as an angel, and she's got the devil in her. I'm telling you straight up.
Can we get her on the pod?
Well, we would probably not. But she was the one that she was super smart and she was super athletic, so she was always quick. She was always the first one up the stairs and made sure I was behind her. So when Dad was chasing her, I was getting pulled. And she would sit right behind Dad in the car, because when Dad was driving, he wouldn't ask questions. He would just swing behind, and of course I'm sitting on the other side, and I'd get biffed in the whatever it was. And Adrian be just laughing, and she's the one causing the problems.
It's her bathroom.
I'm telling you. But that was Dad's girl right there.
First thing, let me.
He said,
you remember this?
I definitely could have handled all this stuff better. And as I grew older, I did handle this stuff better.
Yeah.
But and I also have to admit that I can think of 15 different times where Lucas got punished when it should have been her.
Oh my God, I remember when you went to give spankings and Adrian put books in the pants and said, put books in your pants when Dad goes to give you a spanking. And so I put books in my pants thinking it's a great idea, and Dad smacks my ass and hurts his hand, and of course those books went flying.
It just got worse.
It got worse. That's the same girl like when there was a huge bee's nest, and I'm allergic to everything.
Yeah.
I'm allergic to everything. She's like, just stand there when this bee's nest comes up. And she throws this ball at this big old sandbox that's full of bee's nests, and they're paper wasps. So they just stick on. Oh my God. I'm allergic to everything. My mom is working the emergency room that night, and I come in and I'm swollen shut everywhere.
Yeah.
She's like, what the fuck happened? And I'm like, she told me not to move. And Adrian's like, well, I got stung 3 times because she had like a panic attack because I was getting attacked. So she slapped my hand to grab me, and they stung her 3 times as they did that. I'm like, you got stung 3 times because you put me in a bad situation.
Well, 3 times compared to how many times do you think you got stung?
Oh my God, I don't even know. I probably should have died that
do
night.
Multiplication. Yeah. Carry the 2.
But I kid you not, if you would ever meet her, and I said, we'd wonder if she ever come on the podcast. If you would ever meet her, you would not believe any of this ever happened.
Ever.
She can totally convince you that she is the perfect angel.
And that's the woman that would convince me to go hide in the dryer, and she turned it on.
You know what's the coolest?
And I was the gullible one that believed my sister every single time.
So the best part about this is at some point I knew I was going to say this, and I got to get it right. But I feel like, and you hinted on it earlier, that there's so many parts of your dad that you didn't understand until you got older.
Correct.
And I feel like the daughter, me personally and you know how we are with our daughters.
Oh my God.
So I think now you can understand how he was with Adrian. But also he had just said, which I didn't expect, is like, I probably could have went a little lighter on Lucas. So I think now he also understands you a little better as time has passed. Can we cheers to that? Like,
There's no doubt I could have handled things much better.
But he, and like I said, Lucas understands you better with time, because there's things about my father I didn't understand for a long time until I went through it myself, and I'm like, wow.
Well, and let's put that in perspective. So when my folks separated my freshman year, so when he went back to school and got done with school, and we got his first teaching job, out of nowhere, separation came in. You know what? So
out of nowhere for you. It probably wasn't out of nowhere for him.
It was the best thing that ever happened.
But it was kind of out of nowhere, because I said I got this teaching job. We're going to move, and basically said, okay, you have a good time.
Well, she got offered a hospital job and told me, she's like, okay, I'm going to be there in 2 weeks. I got offered this hospital job. I was working as a nurse. I'm going to be working in Britt now. I'm coming over to Britt.
Yeah.
And she did come back in 2 weeks, but she came back and cert papers. And I was like, oh God! But here's the shit is I did not like him. Like, I did not like him.
How am I ending up with him? Wait,
I'm like, you are leaving me with him. I don't like him.
This is not going to be good.
This is not great. I'm going to get my ass kicked.
Probably the
I'm
best
have a
thing that could have
conversation.
happened for you.
And then here you go and look at, I got married when 28 years old. I got married at 28. Who was my best man in my wedding? My dad.
Hey.
So, I mean, it was the best thing that ever happened.
Yeah.
And that where Helen comes into the equation and, making those tough changes. And I just had to understand what was going on, but not understand, type situations. I see a lot of Kennedy. I see a lot of Adrian in Kennedy. Mm-hmm. And especially this time that we're going through right now.
Yeah.
I see a lot of Adrian and Kennedy, because Adrian was just graduating high school, going into college when all this was going down. She was mature enough to understand that this was the best move for Dad to do. Mm-hmm. And Kennedy's the same way. She understands it's the best move for Dad to be doing in right now. I see Camille she understands but doesn't understand type situation. So
that's kind of where you were.
Yeah, and that's exactly where I was. I was gonna be a chameleon. I was gonna blend in anywhere I go.
Yep.
So,
and that's something I want to talk about that we definitely kind of dance around on this podcast. It's like in society, divorce is looked at as such a negative thing, and honestly, as a man, it can be one of the best things that we go through because we have this pride where we will figure it out. We will stick it out. Unhappy or not, we are gonna make this work because we have to. We are. It's like embedded in us that we can't fail and we can fix this. And it's like if I don't fix this, I failed, and that's not true.
Yep.
If you find someone or something that makes you happy, that can make you a better person, that is the best move. And a lot of the times, it sounds like you were that kid that didn't understand. I was worried that my kid wouldn't understand, and eventually, as time goes on, either you go through it yourself and you understand, or you see how happy your dad is, or how happier that person is, and how this was the best move. They had a very important, happy time in their life together. You know, you may have been created from that happy time, but that doesn't mean that's going to continue to make them happy and continue to let them thrive and live their life to their fullest potential.
Well, and to speak on behalf of it, things happen for the right reasons. Like, I got married for the right reason. I got married for my kids.
Same.
Yep, I got married. I got married because of Kennedy. You know, I got married. That was my reason for marrying. Mm-hmm. I got Camille out of the situation. The next, 15 years is what the fuck what was I thinking? It was.
Damn, Lucas.
I mean, there was.
Okay, I still wanted to dance a little bit.
No dancing. I did the right thing I did the right thing.
He went right in.
Yeah, I did the right thing. But my dad was in the same situation. You know, he
my dad as well.
He got married because Adrian was coming.
Yep.
And grandpa made it clear this is how it was going to go.
Yeah.
My mom and dad were married when they were 14 and 16.
They had my grandma had my dad, and grandma's still the strongest woman I've ever met in my life. Mm-hmm. She passed away 2 years ago. Yeah. And she was one of my rocks. Yeah. My grandma was one of my rocks. Yeah. And when she had my dad when she was 14, mm-hmm. and
just 14.
Just turned 14.
And
Grandpa was 16 at that time.
If they can make it work, obviously.
Yeah.
Anyone can.
Yeah, if I knock somebody up, I should be able to make this work this fine.
Yeah.
Well, and when Grandpa comes to you and says, you know what, you knocked this girl up, you don't have a choice but to do this. You got to say, yes, I agree, because you did it too. And you know this.
That's tradition, and that's how the world used to work. The world don't work that way no more.
It don't, man.
And as much as we wanted to,
ended up with a lovely lady, and you guys ended up with psychos.
No. Our second move is always the best move because we learned from the first move.
It's something we preach every episode. Always be pivoting is like our slogan.
It is always be pivoting.
And sometimes you got to pivot.
My second move is going to be a hell of a lot better than my first move because it's for the right reason and for the and you've already seen the dark side of it. Mm-hmm. And I mean that's like. That's life. I mean that is life. If you don't learn by the first pivot and you're pivoting for no reason, then don't pivot.
People watch this this show, this series, and they think it's about whiskey and real estate. This is about life.
Oh my God,
this is about life.
Hard knocks. I mean, it is the hard knocks life. I mean, and I was never one of those really smart kids in school type situation.
But everything you just said about just farming alone.
Just put me on the streets, though, and I got you.
Street smart, farm smart.
Which he gets from me.
Hey, take your credit, Pop.
No, you got that from me. Academically, I was right in the middle. Yeah. I literally was 261st in a class of 522.
Okay. I was 20th out of 22.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot in your class,
but I was with a class of geniuses too.
Yeah. I feel like when it comes to academics, like I knew everything. I didn't care because I already know this shit, or I know what matters. I know what I need to do to get by in the real world. So I don't need to know what year this happened, what this equals a math problem equation that I'll never use.
It's crazy. We just talked about this at Easter because, like me, I was one of those stupid kids in school, but it's because I was sleeping half the time.
Yep, I slept a lot.
Because I was at work at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
I was unloading trucks. I was unloading trucks.
Pops confirmed.
Yeah, and I would go from unloading trucks, which was a hell of a workout, and then I would go to weightlifting, and then I'd go to school, and then I'd go to practice, and then I would go back to work, and I would get home as soon as I closed down the store.
Man.
And I would rinse and repeat, and truck was 3 days a week. So it was, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday was trucks. I had a game Friday night, so I was beat the fuck going into my game to unloading the trucks on Saturday mornings.
A lot of times you didn't go to sleep.
No.
You just stayed up.
But my PE teacher and my basketball coach at that time looked at me and he's like, okay, I'm clearing the locker room out today. On Fridays and Mondays, he knew he needed to make sure no one was in the locker room because there was a couch in the locker room and that's where I slept.
Yeah.
And
Good guy.
yeah, he was. And so they allowed me to sleep on the couch because I was working.
Yep.
3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. And my very first job was from my basketball coach at that time, which was he ran a Happy Chef.
Yeah, I'm
Coach
familiar.
Flifflet.
Yeah.
Coach Flifflet was my sophomore year and freshman year basketball coach.
Well, we post this. We got to tag Coach.
Yeah, tag Coach Flifflet. Probably not the greatest guy, but he's a good dude.
Now we're not going to tag him. What the hell is that?
But anyways, no, he was a good dude. Anyways, he already knew. He already knew that what I was going through and what I was doing because he was my boss at work.
Okay.
So I would work Fairway, and then I would go in at 9 o'clock at night, and I'd work to 7 in the morning at Happy Chef. And he was the owner of it. And on Saturdays we had basketball games back then. And he would be like, "Oh, you just worked. You haven't slept yet." Or I went drinking after I got off work.
Let's keep it real.
No.
Yeah.
That actually happened?
I remember it was Ryan Wagner's birthday party. And
Oh, man. Is this a story you should tell it?
he probably doesn't even know. But anyways, I think I was a freshman or sophomore, and do not do this, daughters. And so as a freshman, I was playing sports with the varsity level. So I was with all the seniors and juniors.
Yeah.
And I was excelling. I was pretty damn good.
Yep.
And so I would be hanging out with them, and as soon as I got off work, that's where I would go. If I wasn't with a girl, I was out drinking.
Yeah.
And so I learned real quick my sophomore year not to do that when the first college letters started coming in. I was like, "No, you can't be doing this shit. You better lock into something."
Yep.
But anyways, I remember Coach Flifflet looked at me on a Saturday morning. We were playing at Britt, and you actually brought me to the game and picked me up from the game. And I had a killer game, and I hadn't slept yet, and I was buzzed out of my mind still at the game. and they just kept feeding me. I'm like, all right. And we were down to like 6 guys on the bench. I'm like, you're good. Keep them there.
Is this college or high school?
This was high school. High school. I was a freshman, sophomore in high school. And I'm like, just keep those guys on the bench. I'm good. Just keep feeding me. And they kept feeding. And I remember that game got over, and a couple of parents came over and said, "Hey, so on." And I'm like, "Dad, we need to get to the car."
Yeah.
and he took me to there was a little gas station in Britt that we went to, and because the school we were playing was West Hancock, and I got some Gatorade, and I drank one Gatorade, and I'm like, "Dad, it was a bad night last night."
Oh, shit.
Dad looked at me, didn't say a damn thing, and he's like, "You played great. Go to bed."
Yep. Don't give a shit about that night. You played great.
Do it again next week.
Whatever that night was, do it again.
Coach Flifflet looked at me. I remember his eyes on the bench, and he looked at me, and he's like, "Why aren't you coming out?" I go, "Because I'm not going back in as soon as you pull me out." Because I was either going to be puking, or I was going to tighten up, or
let the adrenaline roll.
Just let this thing go. Do not sub me out.
Oh man! So you did football in high school, and Dad, you did football and wrestling.
I did. We didn't have wrestling at where we were at school.
Okay.
Nope.
I coached football, baseball, track, and I ran the weight room.
Yep. So I was 4 sports in high school.
Okay. Which are?
Football. I was all conference 4 years in football, all state 2.
Nice.
Baseball, I was all conference 3 years, all state 2 in baseball. Played golf in high school. Did track for a couple years.
Like golf better.
Did basketball, and basketball was probably one of my better sports. I gave up, because I started getting looks for football and baseball.
Yep. So,
and Dad was very for that, and I was not going to miss a weight room appearance. And
like you had a choice.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. But I used to get yelled at by the teachers because we'd be running in the hallways after school and so on and so forth. I had a petition to be like, let me go do sprints, let me do stairs because I'm not going out for basketball this year. Oh, why aren't you out for basketball?
Yeah.
I'm like, you got to let me just do this. I'm like, because I'm going to the next level and I am going to play football or I'm going to play baseball. So let me condition during this time.
Yeah. Yeah, and back then, like I said, this is a small school. I got hired there for $15,000 a year.
Whoa!
I ran the weight room for free, and that's 6 o'clock in the morning. Almost 365 days a year. We took maybe a handful of days off, Thanksgiving, Christmas.
Yeah, and you didn't get those when I came back from college because I was either in surgery or we were working out.
But it was a different lifestyle. I said the town we lived in before wasn't real big either.
No,
but it was still bigger, and
different reputation. When we went to when
we went to Northwest Laverne, they had the longest losing streak in the state of Iowa.
They did have the longest losing streak in the state of Iowa.
Their football team had been 0-31.
Yeah, 0-31. So it was. And we're coming from a powerhouse in Northwest Iowa, so I'm like shocked.
Yeah.
I'm like, you really gonna bring me over to here to this school? But the gym teacher / basketball coach that I talked about at one time was a former kid that my dad coached.
Yep.
So over in South O'Brien, where we moved from,
my
dad actually coached this guy that was now my gym teacher in my thing. So it was pretty cool.
And he lived right across the street from us.
Oh my God! When my dad and I used to get in a fight, it was fisticuffs. It was let's pull out. He's like, I love it when you and your dad get into it. I just pull out the lawn chair and just watch you guys go at it in the front yard.
Oh my God!
And Dad marries a social worker. And she comes in. I remember
kind of put an end to all that, didn't
it? It did, absolutely. I remember the first week Helen shows up at the house and she's like, what are you and your dad doing? I'm like, well, I got a dent in the front of my car from my ass cheek. I go ask the neighbor. The neighbor's going to tell you everything about everything else.
Oh my God, they saw it all. Dude.
Like I said, there are definitely some things I regret and could have handled a lot better.
I love hearing that. This has definitely been my favorite episode of Whiskey and Real Estate. I promise. We went places I didn't know we could go, and then we went like I said, we don't talk about divorce on this podcast. So to finally go there and actually bring up like the positives of it and the fact that you can move on and make sure you're happy and be able to provide for your kids, that's the answer. So I'm grateful for that. Farm. I didn't know any of the farm life of Lucas and the education behind it. I'm beyond impressed.
No,
for Dad, like I can't just ask you like, are you proud of Lucas? Like we actually got to hear about it. Monica tried to introduce us, but we heard about it at the Iowa Music Awards. Yep. When you inducted him for our humanitarian award, the Big Bang Foundation award. But now just hearing the stories without generically asking you, are you proud of yourself? But like hearing how much of a product of you he is from the sports to the coaching to just knowing the life, the living on the farm, to knowing the history of your family and how hard you all have worked. And I just feel like the things that you taught him, I feel like he picked it up. He adapted even when he didn't want to. He mentioned like, I'm going to live with Dad. And then to find out later that was probably the best decision for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. He's a better guy than I am.
Oh, stop it.
Oh man, he grew up. Make me cry.
he took the positive parts of it, the majority of the positive parts, and And like I said, he's made himself a better man than I could have been. And hopefully that as we've gotten older, we've gotten a lot closer. And
you're my idol. So you're my Sting.
Cheers to dads.
Cheers to dads.
Thank you, Dad.
Cheers to dads.
Thanks for being here. This, again, my favorite episode by far. Cheers, Manika.
I know, I'm kind of like not here. It's okay. Oh, no. You want me to taste that?
oh, cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Everybody else,
Why's your glass empty, Miss Manika?
she ran out of ice.
Hey, there's ice over there. Don't tell Tone. Put it on his floor again.
There we go. I'll mop. Thank you, guys. This is a beautiful episode. Again, my favorite. I'm so grateful. And now we know, where this comes from.
Yeah, now you know it all.
Yeah. You guys are the best.
Yep. Love you, Tone. Love you guys.
All.
Love you all, family.
Cheers, family. Yes.
Tone, I think your glass is empty too.
Yeah, Tom.
Oh, my God. I got other podcasts to run.
No, you do not.
Since when has that
You never did grade this out. What did you think of this stuff?
I would give this is pretty high on the tier scale. This is really close to top tier. Not much of a burn, very smooth, very easy, very good. It feels like my third glass.
Hey, do you got to put it on the camera? This is what we got left. So I mean, there's been episodes where we only get down to here because we don't really like it, but then
we weren't gonna tell them that.
Yeah.
We still want the sponsorship.
fact.
Real quick, we got to close this out, but we didn't get to today's market.
Oh well, today's market's crazy.
Does an episode ever start without it being crazy?
Well, Dad touched on it a lot with the tariffs and so on and so forth. So tariffs have been a positive, but they've also been a stalemate on a lot of investors and so on and so forth. Because where the tariffs have really impacted, they've been beneficial for the people to see what the future of the business is, but where it hurts is on the agricultural side because it is affecting the commodities. So today, the tariffs are really going to have an effect on because like Dad said earlier, China's our number one buyer of beans, and soybeans and corn.
Yeah.
South America is the number one producer in the world of soybeans. Mm-hmm. So when South America, we've been very fortunate the last couple of years that they've gone. Sorry, South America, they've gone through a drought and they've gone through a flood seasons over the last 3 to 5 years. So we've been very fortunate enough that we picked up all those for China. China's been buying all that stuff from us instead of South America.
And Ukraine. Ukraine was like the number 4 supplier.
Correct. So with these tariffs that go into effect to China, it really hurts the commodities that we have going on here. Commodities being your agriculture and what is being exported. What Trump's doing with the tariffs that is really affecting the small business owners. It's really affecting the business owners, the people that want to build stuff here in America.
Yeah.
We can't sell with corn and beans. We have to sell outside of America because everyone in North America is producing corn and beans.
Yeah.
So we can't sell to each other. So the tariffs where they have a negative effect is on the commodity side, which is your corns and beans that go. China's our number one buyer. South America has been a huge buyer of ours as well because they were in a drought and so on. But this year it looks like they're actually going to have a record-producing soybean season, which will be back to. Anyways,
that's why they listen to us. They get the tips.
Yeah,
he predicts the future every episode.
so again, this is going to be one of those things that as soon as the tariffs they smooth themselves out, it'll be fantastic for the stock market.
Yeah,
it's still going to hurt the commodities. Once the commodities decided to, once China gets on board, which they will, I predict in the next 60 days they will, because they're going to need beans and they're going to need corn.
Yeah,
and because
are they just not able to produce it there?
Their terrain doesn't allow it to produce in abundance.
Well, I mean, they have 1.5 billion people in China, so
well, that means they don't have any.
There's
farmers.
no way to have enough.
Yeah. Well, and also you got that many people, it's taking up all your farmland.
Yeah, they got to have somewhere to live and not anywhere to farm.
Exactly. So so they're down to rice paddies and rice fields and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I mean that's
the truth.
It's the facts. I mean, it's like I was helping this investor out of Chicago, straight Asian guy. He was looking at me, and he goes, Lucas. And we were talking. I was showing him selling in this property, and he's like, "There must be pit bulls in this." I'm like, "Yeah, there is pit bulls in here. How'd you know?" He goes, "Well, they wouldn't let me in their unit to see this unit." He goes, "White guy or black guy must have pit bulls."
Yep.
I said, "Yeah."
Yep.
He goes, "I'm not being racist." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes,
These are facts.
"He goes, it is like I eat rice every day. I am 100% Asian." And I'm like, "You're 100% right." I go, "So when you talk about rice and that what they're producing out there in China, that's what they're producing." Mm-hmm. And so that's the reason they need to buy our soybeans and corn. But if we have heavy tariffs over there, everything that's going in there, that's going to affect our commodities here. And
Damn.
yeah, and so that's the ripple effect. That's the throwing the rock in the lake.
We talk about it every week.
And so as soon as China gets on board, everything will be straight in America.
Yeah.
And they don't have a choice. When you're at 225% on a tariff.
Yeah, I heard they hit us with a tariff back.
They hit us with the tariff back at 125%. Trump went back at 150%, said you got so many days to respond to this, and they didn't respond to it, and they didn't get on board, so he went at 225%.
Oh, man.
So that means if you were going to buy an iPhone today, it's going to cost you out your ass. Don't go buy an iPhone today.
This is not the time.
This is not
to
the
buy.
time.
Normally, we tell you when this is the time to buy.
Yeah.
It's not the time to buy an iPhone.
So
We're not
60
talking about
days
houses.
from now might be a different day. Different day.
Dad, do you concur? Are the tariffs affecting you in the same way, or is there other information we don't know about?
No, the tariffs are definitely affecting us as far as commodity sales. There's no ands, ifs, or but about it. Perfect example of that is once the tariffs were announced and they were going to go into effect, prices of corn dropped 40 cents. And the very next day, where they said they were postponing them, they jumped back up 30 cents. So I mean, obviously, and this is just on their just with China. So no, this is totally
We talk about the ripples in the lake every episode, and we see them in real time in real life. So these aren't predictions or guesses; these are spoilers.
It's a fact.
Spoiler alert! Next week.
Yes, sir.
well. Right now, I mean, corn is as of today for us at our elevator, corn was $4.63, and when the tariffs were announced the day before they went into effect, they were $4.05. So when you're talking about, 40,000 bushel times an extra 60 cents, that can add up really quick.
So that's a positive effect that the tariffs have had then, because they go.
No, because they were holding off.
So, but they went from 405 to 465.
They have since.
Since the tariff, because they know China's going to get back on board.
Well, they're hoping China's.
They don't have it. They don't have to, or they better go.
Lucas is as confident as our president.
The day
They have
before-
to. They have to.
The day before, they went all the way up to 475, and they've been kind of creeping back down. So obviously, they're not as confident as you are.
All right, I don't got.
We know where this could go.
Yeah, but I will bet anyone that watches this episode, I'll bet every viewer $5 that in 6 months that we will be in a better place because of the tariffs than we are because of the tariffs that were put out there.
I'm not going to bet you, but I honestly believe that as well. We've got to go through this tough time to get to a better time and be more self-sufficient, or pay us, bro. Like we give you guys a lot of business.
Yeah,
almost everything made in China. We're very foreign reliant in America, and it's time for us to benefit from that.
It's like when the contractor signs with the contract with the AMMT. That 1099 guy that signs with it, the very last thing that says treat AMMT as your biggest client. Mm-hmm. If you don't treat us as your biggest client, we will replace you.
Wait, what? That's in the paperwork?
That's in the paperwork.
Shut the what?
and because we are the contract's bigger. We are that contractor's biggest client.
We the big dogs. Treat us like that.
And that's exactly right.
Cheers to that. I think that's a great way.
Wow.
Say it with your chest then.
And that's how it is. I mean, come on.
Oh, man. This has been not another. This has been the greatest episode of Whiskey and Real Estate. Thank you, Dad, for being here.
Thanks, Dad. I appreciate you and
Lucas,
love you.
for educating us.
You too, bud.
And you guys are amazing. Thank you, Monika.
This is probably the least I've ever heard of Monique on any of your podcasts. Does that,
I think you handled
that tie
her part.
into the greatest one ever?
Yeah, I think so. No.
You can't say that.
Try to get me
It's
canceled.
probably the least edited.
There we go. Thank you, guys. This was awesome.
All right. Love you, Tone.
I love you, Tone.